Absolutely delighted to talk to you today about Twitter for Business and specifically share some best practices for B2B marketers to get more out of Twitter. So whether you're a more experienced marketer or whether you're working on the agency side or even slightly less familiar with Twitter, there will be topics we're covering today that will bring you value to your activities. Now this is Twitter, remember that. Be social and let us know your views. Join us on the hashtag Twitter Academy, and as we cover the topics, let us know what you think. And to start, a quick word about your speaker. That's me. My name is Larry, and I'm a business marketing manager based in Twitter's European headquarters in Dublin, Ireland. If you follow me on Twitter with my username, Larinam, you'll find that I mostly tweet about startups, marketing, and the technology sector. So topics that are quite close to my heart and we're covering today. Now, if you want any more information about today's topics, reach out to me on Twitter with my username, and I'll be happy to answer. So we've got a really full agenda today, some really great topics. We'll start off discussing how it's important to set the right goals for B2B marketing on Twitter. Then we'll look at some of the making the right connections on Twitter, specifically looking at how executives and businesses can build influence. And then we'll look at some content best practices and look at some examples from the real business world. And finally, we're going to be talking how you can drive more results using Twitter ads. So let's get started now looking at how Twitter connects businesses and a very quick introduction to B2B on Twitter. Twitter is the place the business world connects, openly, publicly, and live when things happen. There are thousands of well-known CEOs and business influencers on Twitter, but here on this slide you'll just find a few of the familiar examples. Top CEOs, company founders, and business journalists with active presence on Twitter with millions of followers. And on any given day, you'll find the top influencers in business world discuss the things that are happening. You'll find that that's a place where people go to get their news and their information, and it's the place where you can connect with them 24/7 around the world. As a B2B marketer, you'll also know that social media is a central pillar to your content marketing strategies. In fact, you may already know that 93% of all business marketers use social media to distribute content about their business. And it won't come as a major surprise to you to also discover that almost all of those B2B marketers, 87%, use Twitter to do their distribution for content. Twitter also drives real business results, and almost every day you see examples of how business leaders use Twitter to make new connections and achieve their business goals. Here's a good example of how big an impact one tweet can make. So when the Chancellor of Exchequer for the UK, George Osborne, tweeted an investment in one company, the CEO of Norton Motorcycles, Stuart Garner, tweeted to him asking if he could also support another British company. A week later, the Chancellor's office reached out to Stuart saying that they found his tweet and they would like to discuss. It was again a short while later that it was actually George Osborne who was visiting Stuart Garner and their motorcycle plant, announcing their support for their company again on Twitter. So now let's focus on your business and see how you can get connected on Twitter. And the critical question to ask yourself is, do you already have defined goals for success on Twitter? It's important to start by talking about goals, because in reality, B2B marketers have very different goals they're looking to achieve on Twitter. In fact, we recently did a Twitter poll in the UK and in the Nordics, where we asked B2B marketers what is their most important measurable goal, and we got a very interesting but balanced answer. We had almost an equal amount of people saying that engagements are important. Then we had quite a few that said that new leads are most important, and then some said that sales are important. What's most interesting, perhaps, is that 1 out of 4 B2B marketers who answered us said that they actually don't have a measurable goal yet for Twitter at all. Identifying the right goals is important, so let's go through some of your options. For every stage of the decision-making funnel, you'll find that there's a measurable goal on Twitter. It doesn't always have to be exactly like the way we show here, but here are a few examples. So if you're looking to drive awareness, then, for example, you can use tweets with video and keep track of video views. If you're looking to reach people when they're researching products, then keeping an eye on engagements for your tweets could be valuable. When you're looking to build credibility and influence people's opinions, then you should maybe be looking at how many people are following you and how to grow your follower count. And finally, when you're reaching the right audience at the right time, close to the decision-making process, then tracking the ultimate number of leads coming in or even conversions can be the most important goal to achieve. Whatever your key goals are for Twitter, the second strategic consideration as a B2B marketer is, what are your available resources? And we asked B2B marketers in the UK and in the Nordics, again in another Twitter poll, what is the key challenge they faced on Twitter? And interestingly, the top challenge B2B marketers identified to us was the challenge to produce enough engaging content. We'll go through in a lot of detail in the later sections what are kind of content best practices we can share. When you're looking to achieve your goals for Twitter, do remember this. Long B2B sales cycles will require more content. And there's a few ways this will impact your strategy. If you're specifically working in the tech space, it's worth knowing that 1 out of 3 decision makers will need at least 6 or more pieces of content before they make a purchase. Another thing is that it may take up to from 4 months to a year for a large portion of business professionals to make major purchase decisions. And finally, as perhaps a result, less surprisingly, 3 out of 4 business marketers plan to create more content in 2016 than they did in 2015. So before we go through achieving our goals and sharing great content on Twitter, let's first go through how you can build influence and get found on Twitter, and how you can identify and connect with the right audience. Ask yourself this: why would people follow you or your business on Twitter? We've done a bit of research on this topic, and I can share a number of reasons why decision makers specifically would be following certain businesses. So firstly, decision makers like to stay up to date with trends, updates, and the best practices in their industry. We're all news junkies, so businesses who can demonstrate expertise are more likely to be followed. Decision makers also like to discover new technologies. So if you're in the sector where you can demonstrate some innovation, it's a good reason to be followed. And thirdly, decision makers also like to know what their peers are doing. So whether they're following their competitors, their customers, or people in their industry, decision makers do also like to follow what other peers are doing. When you think about connecting on Twitter with the right business audience, think also about who you're following yourself. After all, it's often a two-way stream. And here we've got a checklist for you to refer to and cross off if you think you're already following these types of influencers. So first of all, are you following key media sites covering your industry? Are you following your employees and your work colleagues? Are you following your customers and your prospects? Are you following industry leaders and other peers? And finally, are you following investors and analysts covering your sector? If you go through this checklist and you think that you've already covered all of these types, great for you. If there's some you have missed already, go to Twitter and find more relevant accounts to be followed. And here's another checklist for you. Remember to make it as easy as possible for people to follow your business. So this means sharing your username on Twitter wherever you're in contact with relevant audiences. Include your Twitter handle in your email footer, for example. Bring it up on your website or include it in your business cards. Remember to include your Twitter account in any sales materials you take to events. And wherever you're in touch with the business world, share your Twitter account and make sure you can be found. Now we're getting to the meat of today's presentation. We're going to go through some B2B content best practices and examples. There'll be plenty of inspirational, great content from real other businesses, so now is a great time to start taking notes and get inspired. Here are some examples of different types of businesses sharing some company news. Firstly, you can see on the left here, Fujitsu is sharing how they can be reached when Mobile World Congress was happening in Barcelona. It's a great way to share your presence in key industry events. In the middle, you'll find a Finnish startup called Holvi, who announced on Twitter that they had been acquired by a major international banking group. And on the right, you'll see Adobe advertising their marketing cloud showcase, sharing some announcements from their own company events. It's a great way that you can, again, amplify the reach of the events you're doing on Twitter. Another popular type of tweet for B2B businesses is one that shares expert opinions. On the left, you'll see Tata Consultancies share their views on the Internet of Things, making a reference to the hashtag IoT. In the middle, there's a great example of a tweet where Nokia's CEO is put on the spotlight, sharing his views recently published in a blog article. Whereas on the right, Box showcases a guide to doing businesses in a digital, mobile, and cloud age. Whether it's a blog article, an ebook, or a webinar, there's plenty of ways that you can share your informed opinions in your tweets. Often B2B marketers spend a lot of time looking beyond their company for news, when they actually have a lot of good news and stories to share from within their company and from within their customer base. So here's just 3 examples of these kind of tweets. On the left, here's a tweet from a web hosting company called UpCloud, referring to an industry benchmark that gave him a high rating. It's a great way to showcase some objective reviews of your businesses. In the middle, Ticktail is an e-commerce service, and in their tweets, they like to showcase some of the small businesses that use their product and share their personality. And finally, if you close a big deal, celebrate it. On the right, you see a finance startup called Zervant, who announced the major deal they made with ING Bank. Another type of tweet you can try is a Twitter poll. They're quick to set up and an easy way to gauge opinions of your followers. Just click on the little poll icon where you're creating a new tweet to get started. And here we see 2 companies, HubSpot and Fuse, using Twitter polls to ask fairly specific industry questions of their followers. It can be a great way to get a lot of engagements very quickly. And another great thing about them is you can also promote polls to very specific audiences, so you can get very detailed, very targeted market research through these. Another popular type of tweet for B2B's marketers is sharing infographics or fun facts. And here are 2 recent examples. On the left, Tieta Corporation teased users on Twitter with the question, "Do you know this?" While on the right, you'll see Maersk use some fun facts to give personality to their trade and their global business. So we still have a couple examples of popular tweets among B2Bs. First of all, competitions. They can be a great way to boost engagements among new users. So on the left, you'll see Intuit are offering their new followers a chance to win a drone. And on the right, the Business Growth Hub is promoting a competition they're running for innovative new business ideas. Finally, you may have seen how popular live video is becoming, and you may have even heard about PERSICOPE, the app of the year in Apple's App Store. So we've seen businesses already find some really creative ways to use Periscope and live video in their tweets. On the left, you'll see Fujitsu shared a behind-the-scenes view from the Mobile World Congress in Barcelona. So people who couldn't be there could actually see what was going on in a live video. On the right, Ericsson recently gave people a unique tour of the Technical Museum in Stockholm, where there's a lot of interesting insights to the history behind Ericsson and the technology sector in that country. It's a great way to show people the history behind your own company. We went through a lot of good examples from real businesses, so now let's bring this together to a content strategy for Twitter. Here is a recommendation we have of the type of tweets you can use as a business. Again, this is a recommendation. It doesn't have to be a rule. So start by thinking about the kind of tweets you want to do more often on the left-hand side of the screen. And then you test and learn from the ones that you perhaps don't do so often on the right-hand side of the screen. We know that business decision makers do want to follow businesses that get up to date with the latest trends and news, so tweet about those kind of things more often. Share your informed opinions also more often. And when you want a bit of more variety in the kind of tweets you have, include things like infographics and try Twitter polls or even periscopes occasionally and see what works for you. Whatever you decide to tweet about, one thing you need to consider is that as a business user, you should probably be tweeting more often. To illustrate this, here are 3 examples of popular hashtags like hashtag cloud, Linux, and open source. You can see that there's pretty much a consistent stream of conversation around all of these hashtags. So businesses that do well are the ones that capture a high share of voice by tweeting more often, and that often means tweeting more than once a day. So how will you go about developing an always-on content strategy for Twitter? Start by planning out and scheduling your daily and weekly tweets ahead of time. For example, you could plan your company news tweets earlier in the week, then share more informed opinions, more customer showcases, more questions and polls, and more infographics as the week goes on. You can tweet many times a day, and remember that you can easily schedule your tweets with Twitter ads or with products and tools like TweetDeck, which is available at tweetdeck.twitter.com. Some businesses may be concerned about repeating key messages. Some even don't tweet the same content twice, but consider this. We recently did a piece of research to prove that repeating key messages significantly drives up engagements. In fact, there's over a 3 times higher chance to get a click from one of your tweets after 1 to 4 exposures when reaching decision makers on mobile devices. So, as a final piece of advice for your content strategy, remember that it's totally okay to repeat key content, and in fact, often it results in more engagements. So hopefully by now you've been inspired to refresh your content strategy for Twitter. Now, how would you know that your new tweets are working? To answer that question and give you a whole lot more detail about the health of your Twitter account, log into Twitter Analytics at analytics.twitter.com. Now, in Analytics, you can have a lot of useful information. For example, in the Account Home tab, you'll get a dashboard view of the key KPIs that affect your account. For example, how many followers you're getting, how many tweets are getting impressions, and so forth. Another useful dashboard there is the Tweet Activity Dashboard, which gives you insights on actually every single tweet that you make. You'll be able to see which ones are your best performing tweets, and you'll be able to see what kind of tweets would be effective to do again later on. And finally, in Twitter Analytics, you also have an Audience Insights dashboard, which will give you a lot more insight about your follower growth, and it'll give you insights about the interest that your followers have. So to access all these 3 reports, log into analytics.twitter.com. When you're equipped with the right business goals and you've got a clear idea of your content strategy, you're in a good position to reach relevant new audiences on Twitter. The fastest and most targeted way to reach wider audiences and drive more results is Twitter ads. Twitter's advertising platform was totally built around meeting your business objectives, so you only pay when you achieve the relevant results. So if your goal is to get video views, you only pay on a cost per view pricing when people have seen your video for over 3 seconds. When you're looking to promote your tweets and get more retweets, likes, and replies, you only pay for these engagements. When you're looking to grow your follower base, you only pay for each new follower, and other kind of engagements will be free. And when you're looking to get leads, you can use a thing called Lead Gen Card, where you'll only pay when you get new relevant leads on Twitter. And finally, if you're most interested in driving actions on your website, then you'll be paying on a cost per click model where all the other engagements like retweets and likes will be free. So let's review 3 top advertising solutions for B2B marketers on Twitter. So first of all, a followers campaign is a great always-on option, as you can use it to steadily grow the amount of relevant followers for your Twitter account. from your industry. And remember that there are no limits to the organic reach of your tweets. So once people are following you, they will be able to see all the great content you have without having to pay for each post. Now, there are two examples of where you can see a promoted account for followers on Twitter. First of all, in the center, you'll see a who to follow example that's been sponsored. And secondly, on the right-hand side, you'll see a tweet that can appear on your timeline, encouraging people to follow this account. For marketers looking to drive more website visits through Twitter, there's two very popular approaches to try. So you'll see on the screen two tweets that look almost identical but behave very differently. In the center, there's a tweet that includes an image and a link, and in this case, only the link itself will be leading to the advertiser's website. On the right is what we call a website card, and this is a type of tweet that was specifically engineered to drive up engagement rates. So everything in this tweet itself, from the image to the tweet itself, will be clickable and lead to the advertiser website. So in these cases, it's really a trade-off between having high click-through rates and a high engagement rate and conversion rate on your website. And we do recommend that as businesses, you try out both approaches and see what works for you. The last type of advertising product I'd like to highlight is called Quick Promote. It's the fastest way to promote your tweets on the go. So imagine you're in an industry conference or you're just about to announce some major news. You're on your phone and you want to tweet about it and have as many people see the tweets as possible. So once you've tweeted, you can click on the little View Tweet Activity link and you'll instantly get a dashboard view of how many people have seen your tweet. In the bottom, you'll see there's another link that says Promote Your Tweet. And if you click on that, you'll get a very quick summary of where you can target your tweet to be seen and how much you're willing to spend. That's all you need to start a new campaign with Quick Promote. So now let's look at targeting. You may be already familiar with the different ways you can pinpoint relevant audiences on Twitter, so let's not go through all of them, but instead, let's look at some of the best practices identified for business marketers. So for example, in keyword targeting, it's useful to remember that it works slightly different than other platforms like paid search. So effectively, what we're looking to do is match recent mentions or engagements of keywords and hashtags to specific audiences. So when you're planning a new keyword targeted campaign, start with a bigger list of keywords, at least 50 keywords or hashtag mentions, and then narrow down your focus over time. Follower targeting is also hugely popular for business to business because you can effectively target followers of industry influencers or even your competitors. When you're building out a follower targeted campaign list, start with at least 10 to 25 accounts and again, narrow your focus over time. And remember that many Twitter users access on mobile devices. Up to 80% of time you see people access on mobile. So consider separating your desktop and mobile campaigns and having different ways to target strategies for those two different devices. And finally, remember that you can opt in and opt out of similar user targeting in your campaigns whenever you like. So if you're looking to broaden your reach or narrow it, you can adjust your campaign settings. The one targeting option that requires more attention for business marketers is tailored audiences. This is where you use signals from outside of Twitter to identify relevant users, and you can think about this as remarketing for Twitter. You can create tailored audiences from for example, your website visitors, your email prospect list, or Twitter IDs you've collected, or some third-party specialists that offer working with Twitter. The key thing to remember here is that you can customize your messaging or even exclude people based on tailored audience lists you use. The glue that brings together an effective Twitter ads campaign and shows you how to get more results from your campaigns is conversion tracking. By adding a small amount of code to your website, you'll be able to get far more data on the key activities you want to achieve. A simple pixel on your website will help you retarget or exclude specific audiences and find relevant similar users on Twitter. It's the cornerstone of any successful B2B campaign. The really great thing about conversion tracking on Twitter is that you'll be able to track conversions across devices, as most Twitter users will be logged in on mobile and desktop devices alike. So from your first impressions on mobile devices to conversions on desktop, you can track performance of your marketing campaigns over time and optimize results. So to get started, you simply need to log into Twitter Ads and find the conversion tracking tool in your tools menu. Let's take a second now to review the key steps to succeed with advertising solutions at Twitter. First of all, have you identified the key objectives for your campaigns, whether it's prospecting, getting conversions, or building brand loyalty? Secondly, have you chosen the right kind of promoted product, and have you A/B tested to see what kind of creatives work best for you? Third, are you reaching the right audience with your targeting, and are there more effective targeting options you can test? Fourth, have you enabled conversion tracking, and have you been able to perform the performance-driven campaigns in Twitter Analytics? And fifth, are you optimizing your results for mobile and desktop users, and are you taking advantage of lookalike targeting and remarketing on Twitter? If you go through this checklist and you hit all 5 areas, you're set up for success. We've covered a great amount of topics today, so it's time to wrap up. First of all, think back to how Twitter connects you with the business world, and Twitter is a great place to connect with B2B influencers live, public, and conversationally. When you're planning your strategies for content on Twitter, always start with the business objectives you want to achieve in mind. Test, learn, and repeat from the best content, and engage with your target audience. Use Twitter Analytics to see what works and appeals to your target audience as well. And finally, when you're looking to drive more business results, experiment with some of the more advanced ways you can reach relevant audiences on Twitter and through Twitter ads. So thank you for joining us for this very special topic. We'd now love to hear what you think. So if you haven't done so already, join us on the hashtag Twitter Academy and share your views.